Chilling new details tonight in that racist attack in Jacksonville, Florida. In just moments, I'll speak with the sheriff on the investigation as well as the hero security guard who chased down the gunman. But first, new videos show a white gunman made a stop at Edward Waters University and a Family Dollar, both before going to the Dollar General, armed with an AR-15 style rifle and a handgun. That is where he killed 3 Black people. Tonight, Jacksonville mourns 52-year-old Angela Michelle Carr, 19-year-old Arnold Joseph A.J. Laguerre Jr., and 29-year-old Gerald Gallion. I want to bring in now Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters. Sheriff Waters, thank you very much for being here. I know how difficult of a time this is for your community. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We were just discussing these videos that really start to paint a picture of what was going on with the shooter. He made multiple stops and even got ready for these attacks in public. Is it possible that he wanted to be seen before carrying out this awful attack? Do you have any sense of the why here?
You know, I wish I did. I can't tell. I wish we could have, been able to figure this out. We can't tell what his intentions were. All we can do is surmise based off what we've seen is that he had an intention to, I think, and this is what our detectives think, we all think this collectively, that his initial target was going to be that first store he stopped at. He waited there for a very long time. He could not, I don't know whether seeing that security vehicle from First Coast Security stopped him. I believe that's what it was. He did not want to face anyone that would create some sort of issue for him. He was looking for innocence.
He was looking for people perhaps that he didn't know or that wouldn't confront him. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I don't think he wanted to have any confrontation with someone that would create an issue for him or stop him from doing what he wanted to do.
That's interesting and obviously very disturbing. You've also said that the shooter had a chance to shoot at people at the university, that historically Black university in Jacksonville. Can you tell us more about what your investigation has found about why he didn't if he had the opportunity?
I think he had a goal in mind. Based off what we've been able to find, he worked at Dollar Tree. Mm-hmm. He went to another Family Dollar store, Kings and Myrtle. Then he left there, went and got changed at EWU, our local HBCU, and then left there to go to Dollar General. I think he wanted those stores, I don't know why. I can guess, but I don't know why.
The suspect also left behind writings to his parents, the media, federal agents. What can you tell us about those writings? What do they say or reference that would help us understand what his mindset was going into this?
They say quite a bit. They are very foul. Filled with a lot of hate-filled language towards many different races of people, but primarily against Blacks. He did not like anything. He didn't like the government. He didn't like Republicans. He didn't like Democrats. He thought the system was a complete failure. He didn't like the LGBTQ community. He didn't like anything. He even mentioned some other groups that, I think there's been speculation that he's connected to. He mentioned those groups. He didn't like those groups. So he was just a very confused, but pointed and driven and determined young man.
So you mentioned other groups. Are you saying that there were sort of broader groups that maybe people might assume share his views that he specifically mentioned that he did not associate with? What are those groups?
He did. He mentioned one in particular that wears Hawaiian shirts. That's all I'll say. He didn't like that group. He mentioned that group. And he, like I said, he was just not confused. He knew what he believed. He wasn't confused. He was just ramblings, organized ramblings. It's the best way that I can describe it.
I know that obviously this moment that your community is in pain, but there's been a lot of reaction at the national level. One has come from a presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy. He recently dismissed this idea of white supremacy. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say.
The reality is we've created such a racialized culture in this country in the last several years that right as the last few burning embers of racism were burning out, we have a culture in this country largely created by media and establishment and universities and politicians that throw kerosene on that racism.
This is obviously an attack that was targeted at Black people in a predominantly Black part of your community. You are also a Black man. What's your response to that?
I mean, clearly there's racists. I mean, we know that. I mean, I believe 100% there's racists. Now, do I believe our country is full of people that want to kill each other because of who we are, what we believe, our religion? I don't. I don't believe that. I've been in this community for a very long time, and that's not representative of who we are. But there are outliers. There are people who don't like other people for their race, for being Black, for being Jewish, for being whatever, a religion. That exists. White supremacy, maybe he was. I believe he was by listening to what he said and the things that he wrote down. And I do know that those things exist, or those people exist. But as a whole, in this city, I believe we're a great city. I believe we're great people. I believe that when I went to a prayer vigil yesterday, there were people from every walk of life that were there. There was a Jewish rabbi that was there. There were white people that were there. There were Black people that were there. And this division that you hear about so much in our country, I'm sitting in rooms full of all sorts of people every single day that we look at each other, we take care of each other, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah. And our hearts continue to be with your community. And in these moments, it's sad what has happened, but we see the goodness in people when they come together in times like this. Sheriff T.K. Waters, we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And up next, the hero security guard who confronted that Jacksonville shooter while he was at Edward Waters University. Lieutenant Antonio Bailey joins me in just a moment.